My name is Courtney Menjivar, and I'm a principal with Wells & Associates, co-leading our Transportation Demand Management, or TDM, practice. Today's transportation topic is City of Denver's TDM requirements. So in April of 2021, the Denver City Council voted to approve a bill for a TDM requirement for certain new developments. The bill will amend Chapter 54 of the Denver Revised Municipal Code to enable and administer a TDM program for new developments. The TDM program in Denver aims to reduce the number of people driving, create a walkable, transit-friendly communities, and improve community health and environment. Once in effect, developments will be required to implement a range of infrastructure, services, or programmatic tools to help residents, commuters, and visitors make greater use of biking, walking, transit, and rideshare transportation options. So with me today are Nate Abbott with Galloway Company, Heidi Thorne with Wells & Associates, Chris Swaggett with D4 Urban, and each of them will provide a unique perspective about Denver's TDM policy that I'm excited to share with our viewers today. So diving right in, our first perspective is from Nate Abbott, but first let's learn a little bit about Nate. So Nate is a site development project manager with Galloway Company. He is a LEED accredited professional providing development consulting services for national commercial real estate clients. He is responsible for all aspects of the development from site selection and entitlements through construction administration. His specific responsibilities include performing due diligent research, coordinating site planning and design activities, preparing and managing project schedules and budgets, and serving as a primary liaison between government agencies and clients. It's with this background in mind that Nate is constantly monitoring policies like this TDM ordinance and how they impact his real estate clients. So Nate, recently you have direct experience with Denver's green roof and EV charging requirements and their impact on your commercial real estate clients. Can you comment on concerns you may have with the TDM requirements based on that experience?
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. I appreciate the introduction and the ability to be here with you all today. The City of Denver's development review process, in my opinion, is already cumbersome and time-consuming with the volume of projects and staffing levels with the city. And while I think that the TDM ordinance is well-intentioned, my concern is that this will just be seen as additional red tape by a developer or owner while offering little tangible benefits or return on investment. The implementation and monitoring of strategies may also be seen as an ongoing maintenance item for owners that may be less than desirous. However, it does seem that the city is moving ahead with an open mind, realizing that TDM strategies may change depending on market forces or initial strategy selection. My hope would be that the city gives the review staff some level of discrepancy to provide administrative relief in the review process versus just checking the box that a TDM strategy is being met and adhered to. In our experience, that seems to have happened with EV charging requirements. Staff initially seemed to be unclear as to how the EV stall requirements were to be calculated. So it's really hard to, navigate through that process and consult with our clients and respond to their comments in a timely fashion. Additionally, based on some of my colleagues' recent experience with some larger development projects, I think implementing the TDM strategies will be challenging due to the fact that there may be a master developer who's leasing or selling off pad sites. One example I could think of is, will that total square footage or the overall site be taken into consideration with the square footage calculation for the tier category, or will smaller pad sites that are going in after the fact have to comply regardless of their size with the TDM strategies if they're less than the 24,999 square foot requirement. So while I think, with change, there comes, there are some struggles, and I think it's well-intentioned. I just think that it needs to be, well thought through, and there needs to be some flexibility and assure that there's, developers and owners and operators.
Thanks, Nate. So moving on to our second perspective, let me introduce you to Heidi Thorne. So Heidi is an associate in the Transportation Engineering and Planning practice of Wells & Associates, and she is based in the Wells & Associates Denver office. She works on residential, commercial, retail, mixed use, and other projects for clients that include civil engineering firms, architects, and developers. So Heidi supports the development of TDM plans that outline specific strategies helping real estate properties meet their auto trip reduction requirements. It is with this background in mind that Heidi has been monitoring Denver's TDM ordinance and how they impact the TDM plan she helps write for our clients in Denver. So Heidi, we just heard Nate talk about his concerns on the ROI from TDM programs. In your experience with TDM plans and programs in other jurisdictions, is there a ROI that developers can expect?
Yeah, definitely, Courtney. So two of the most impactful ROIs that TDM can support for developers are increased density and decreased parking. Density helps developers spread the cost of construction out over several units. For example, a piece of land costs the same whether a developer builds a 4-story or a 10-story building. In this regard, TDM incentivizes developers thinking bigger about their projects. TDM can also help decrease the amount of parking a project needs to construct. Less parking also equates to a lower cost of construction. This means developers can leverage existing transportation infrastructure to control the cost of their product when it goes to market. Another benefit that comes after a project is delivered is in the form of tenant transportation experience. And this kind of increased experience for the tenants really helps with initial and ongoing lease up.
Thanks, Heidi. That makes a lot of sense. We also heard Nate talk about his concerns about how prospective policies like these can be very prescriptive. Do you have any insights about how prescriptive the TDM policy will be?
Yeah, although the city has currently about 33 strategies that can be included in a TDM plan, depending on the land use and location, they've indicated that over time, the city will need to update the list of strategies based on advancements in transportation technology, services, and lessons learned over the next probably coming years. Staff will also probably need to update the impacts of the strategies on SOV rates based on data collected from monitoring these TDM programs.
Thanks, Heidi. So last but certainly not least, we have our third perspective from Chris Swaggett. Chris is the founder of D4 Urban, which is a Denver-based development company that is focused on sustainable, mixed-use, transport-oriented urban community development. And as operating partner, Chris is responsible for all aspects of D4, including its strategic growth and leading the team on project execution of the redevelopment of Broadway Park, which is a mixed-use neighborhood formerly known as the Denver Design District, and other off-site development opportunities. It is in this context that Chris is focused on making sure access and mobility strategies that are an important part of TDM requirements are integrated into Broadway Park. Chris, you have been incorporating TDM in Broadway Park and other developments you have worked on before these requirements were being approved. Can you please talk about the value proposition of TDM as an amenity and why you would like to do a lot of the TDM strategies at your developments, regardless of the regulation? And what concerns, if any, do you have with TDM requirements at future developments?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I think what Heidi said is absolutely right. You can reduce the amount of parking provision at a development and you can increase density. So ipso facto, that is the reason and the logic for why you do it. But it is very type specific and it's very location specific. And obviously time is an important factor as well, where we are in a particular cycle and evolution of a market. Our first project was Denizen Apartments at Alameda Station, literally 30 seconds away from the station platform, 275 apartments. And we took a rather radical view that for an affordable market rate LEED Platinum project, we only needed to provision one parking space per apartment, not one per bed. Yeah, that presented financing challenges. But at the end of the day, it was a successful strategy, fastest rate of lease up, and we sold it 3 years after we began, significantly above our kind of forecast exit cap. But at the end of the day, TDM's objective is to, I think, make the most efficient, sort of efficacious form of commute and path to work by a particular operator. One of the things that probably concerns me most is that the policy was produced at a unique time in our lives, a pandemic. And over the last 14 months, I think we're all navigating, first of all, what the pandemic meant when it shut us down, and now what it means as we emerge. So I've often referred to the fact we were BC, purgatory, and AC. Before COVID, we're in a sort of purgatory at the moment. We're trying to figure it out, whatever typology, and then after COVID. And my concern is that there may be some resistance from users to perhaps take public transportation, perhaps be in more dense developments. I think it's going to unfold over time. And I think, as we come back, as everybody gets vaccinated, we come back, I think that should even out. But it's very property type specific and very location. And what I mean by that is we had an auto dominant destination. It was a retail power center with a couple of office buildings, a medical office building, and a design district. So it was very heavy, 4-5 car spaces per thousand. If you look at what we were achieving and what we were starting to migrate towards before COVID, it's true that mostly residential is still one per bed. That is the traditional view on multifamily or condo. Office was starting to get more creative. I think that's largely kind of reducing for need, particularly when you're on transit. So we were seeing office users come down from 4 per thousand, 3 per thousand, and we were targeting 2 per thousand. Be interesting to see how that goes. And then on the retail side of things, traditional big, large format retail were 4 or 5 per thousand. Neighborhood retail is 2. If you've got a lot of residences around you, and we now have many coming and in planning and either occupied or in planning, much more local, walkable, and our catchment is good. So I think it's not the concept of TDM which I have a concern with. We've been doing it. I recognize it makes sense. It's efficient, helps designers, improves the bottom line in theory. The question is how the next 12, 18, 24 months go, and then what the new normal is.
Thanks, Chris. It's always important to hear the perspective of the person who has to live with the requirements and learn the pros and cons. So Heidi, we heard Chris talk about uncertainty of single occupant vehicles, or SOV targets, in a post-pandemic. Can you share any insights about how the city might handle that?
Yeah, we had a similar concern, but we were reassured by the language in the city's policy summary document that states that enforcement will only be carried out if 3 or more buildings in the blueprint district or blueprint context have reached their maximum SOV rate as well.
That's reassuring to hear, Heidi. Thanks for that insight. Well, this brings us to the end of our discussion on the City of Denver's TDM requirement. And first and foremost, I want to thank a big thank you to Nate, Chris, and Heidi for providing varied perspectives on Denver's TDM policy. We do really greatly appreciate your time. So what's next? Well, Denver's Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, DOTI, and Community Planning and Development Department, CPD, are expected to pass joint rules and regulations, including a public hearing on May 21st. After passage by the council and adoption through rules and regulations, the TDM policy to expand transportation options in new developments will be in effect. We will make sure to share more information on Denver's TDM policy after joint rules and regulations are passed. In the meantime, though, you can learn more about the TDM and the details of Denver's TDM program by clicking the link below of this YouTube video. But until then, thank you for joining us and have a great day.